This is your government video for the Constitutional Convention. We learned in the last video that Shays' Rebellion created a major national storm in the United States amongst the states because it was a major rebellion and a domestic insurrection in Massachusetts. And at the time, we have no standing military, we have no National Guard, and there's also no money to do that. So it's up to each individual state at the time to stop any domestic insurrections. But of course, this also causes other states to think that rebellions of that nature could happen to them as well. And this causes a whole bunch of elected officials and politicians throughout the 13 colonies to want to send people to a constitutional convention. The Constitutional Convention happens in May of 1787 in Philadelphia. And although all 13 colonies had at least some representation that was there for at least part of the convention, not everybody who attended the convention thought that it was going to be successful. There were still lots of people who thought that this was going to break down, that people could not agree on a new constitution, and they would have to go back to their state government and run for re-election. So they're showing up, they're going to give, their 2 cents, and they're going to try to create a constitution, but there's not a whole lot of consensus that this is definitely going to happen yet. I don't know if you've ever been to Philadelphia in the summer, but if you can imagine all of these men gathered in the summertime in Philadelphia, there's no air conditioning at the time. Remember, they're all wearing 3-piece suits and wigs, and they've decided to keep the doors and windows sealed shut. Now, they do this to protect themselves because they do not want any members of the media or any members of the voting public to hear what they have to say, because they want to make sure that members of the convention are free to speak their minds, and that when they leave and have to go back to their own state to run for office, that the opinions that they gave aren't used against them in a political election. Remember, if you don't think that this is going to be successful, then if you were a person that was opting for a new constitution, then that might hurt you in the next election. So they decided to elect George Washington as the presiding officer of the convention. There are a number of people that work very closely with Washington, but Washington is very popular amongst people of all different political backgrounds. And the whole goal of the convention is for them to write up a brand new and completely unique form of democracy for the United States. There's a number of things even to this day that have not been replicated by other governments throughout time. So we are not only one of the younger democracies in the world today, but there are still parts that are completely unique to the United States compared to other democracies in Europe and throughout the world. The Constitutional Convention's main duties is to determine which things in the Articles of Confederation are good and useful and should be added to the Constitution, and which things were so weak and not useful that they need to ditch them completely or do a significant change in order to add them to the new Constitution. This will mean that most of the debate at the convention is going to be about how much federal government is too much. Most of these people like states' rights. Remember, the entire country is created by rebels who left England because they didn't like England's federal government. It was becoming tyrannical and charging them too many taxes. So most of the people who created the colonies really thought they wanted independent sovereign states that were not controlled by a federal government and a strong federal government executive figure. So how much federal is too much and how much state is too much is going to be a major debate at the Constitutional Convention.